Hey, what's going on? So welcome to the Aegis Nutrition Audit. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we can do in terms of understanding our current state so that we can then make a plan moving forward. So there's a couple of scenarios where this training really applies. We'll go through all the scenarios, but first I really want to take you through what an audit is, what the purpose is, and then we can kind of figure out where to go from here. So this is the training. Of course, you have access to this if you want to follow along with me, or if you just want to watch the video. Either is good. So first and foremost, the purpose of this document is to get a baseline of where you're at right now. Okay, so we really want to figure out where you're at right now, whether you're just starting or you're actually kind of into the program already, and maybe things aren't, going the way we thought they would, and we kind of need to get an understanding of what you're struggling with. This is a great tool to use. Okay, so first of all, what is an audit, right? An audit, for this purpose anyway, because there's kind of a whole lot of different audits that you can do in different settings, but for this purpose is to examine the current state of your nutrition. All right, so we can do this so that we can gather data of what's really going on to make sure that we can make an informed decision about what we can improve, what we can work on, maybe things that we're already doing very well, and just kind of understand what's happening. So I actually kind of got this idea when I worked as an engineer at a consulting firm where we actually did a whole lot of continuous improvement type stuff where we worked with businesses to try to improve their internal processes, all that kind of stuff. But we worked with auditing processes a lot. And there's 6 steps to an auditing process, or I wouldn't say like an auditing process, or the auditing process belongs to a bigger framework that are called the 6 steps of improvement. Okay. So the 6 steps go like this. 1, discover improvement potential. So figure out what the hell we're trying to improve anyway. 2, analyze current methods. So figure out what you're doing. Is it working? Is it not working? What's it all about? Number 3, generate ideas on how to improve. So you kind of figure out where you are, and then how can we improve this? Brainstorm some ideas, assess the data that you've kind of been collecting to see where to go from there. 4 is develop a plan. So once you kind of brainstorm some ideas, figure out, okay, well, I can just make these simple changes, and that should, elicit the response that I want it to. Number 5, implement the plan. So that's just the doing of the plan. And then 6, reevaluate or evaluate your new method to see, is it working? Is it not working? Have changes been successful? That kind of thing. So we've already kind of done step 1 of figuring out what the improvement potential is in a way, right? We know typically where our downfalls are when it comes to nutrition, especially if you're just entering the program. We probably have a pretty good idea of some things that we need to improve. But I really want to focus on step 2 and 3 of analyze current methods. So like, what are we doing right now? Is it working? Is it not working? And figure out some ideas on how we can improve. That's where I feel like the success lies. Okay. So why do an audit at all, right? Because sometimes the plan forward needs to start where you are currently, right? The way that I always see things is like, it's great to just start with a plan, but if we don't understand the map, the geography of where we currently are, it's really hard to chart a course forward because maybe we're not exactly where we think we are. For example, if we were to just hit the ground running with some macros, that's all well and great. Macros work. That's awesome. However, one of the big problems is that maybe you use a macro calculator. We use a macro calculator. It tells you need to eat 200 grams of protein a day. That sounds fair. Nothing too crazy there. But what if we find that right now, as it stands, you're only eating 50 grams of protein a day? So are we then going to quadruple your protein intake overnight? I mean, you can try, but it might be more difficult than it ought to be if we were to make a plan moving forward to say, okay, let's start with 100 grams of protein. Let's nail that first, then up to 150, and we'll take a phased approach to increasing your protein instead of just going from 0 to 100, if you know what I mean. So I feel like it's a really good idea to get the lay of the land before we start implementing any sort of plan. And that's the whole purpose of this audit. All right. So note before you start, I want you to be as honest and accurate as you can be. All right. That's the whole purpose of this audit, is to get a sense of where you're at right now and not where you're pretending to be. So again, we'll go through a couple of different scenarios where you might use an audit, especially as you're entering the program. But of course, it's always important to be honest, because we try to understand exactly what your behaviors and things like that are. So, for example, if you have a lot of stress eating that's happening, it's okay, be honest about that. If you are not tracking all the time, be honest about that. If you're giving into junk food quite often, or maybe even just a little bit, be honest about that. Because honesty within the audit is going to make developing a plan so much better because we know what we need to deal with. All right, so we have 3 levels of this audit. All right, so the first level, level 1, is food quality tracking. So we're going to do that for 3 days. We're going to take pictures of everything we eat and drink for 3 days. That's pretty much it. Okay. We do this so that we can kind of understand the different qualities of the types of food that we eat. All right. So whether we're eating kind of mostly whole foods, or maybe we're reliant on takeout a lot, maybe we do a lot of meal prep, maybe we don't. Understanding that kind of thing rather than just the quantity in terms of macros. Okay. So for 3 days, we are going to track exactly what we're eating through pictures. Okay. Because there's a lot we can tell about pictures. Now, of course, there's some rules with this. Like, I say take a picture of everything, but what I really mean is I take a picture of everything with calories. So if you're drinking water, not a big deal. Okay. Drinking coffee, tea, not a big deal. Nothing. We don't need to take pictures of that. However, if you're drinking a coffee that's like a Starbucks, I don't know what the fuck, where it's, 100, 200 calories in it, maybe more, we definitely want to document that. If you're having a drink, a beer, cocktail, that kind of thing, you definitely want to track that. Everything that might have calories is what we want to track. Okay. Even if it is like a diet soda or something that might have 0 or low calories, we still want to track those. The only thing you get really a pass with are water, black coffee, black tea, that kind of thing. Okay. So you'll click here for access to the audit. Here there will be a form for you to fill out to add pictures for day 1, day 2, and day 3. So just take pictures throughout the day of the food that you're eating, then just put them in here. Likewise, if you have me on Messenger or whatever, if you want to send the photos to me, you can there. I just wanted an organized way for us to do this. So if you want to do it this way, you can. If you just want to send the photos to me directly as you eat the food or as you ingest, that's fine with me as well. Okay. So we're going to do that for 3 days just so that we can understand exactly what types of food you're eating, when, that kind of thing. So level 2 audit. Then once you complete the level 1, you're going to do the level 2. Level 2 is a food questionnaire of just 1 day. All right. So, well, it's kind of not 1 day. It's just a food questionnaire, but we're just going to do that for 1 day to understand a little bit more about your food habits. Okay. So it'll take you through some questions like, have you followed a specific diet in the past? As you go through it, you just click next and it'll just ask you some basic questions. Okay. So this is just for me to get a better understanding of what types of habits you follow. If something has worked for you in the past, it hasn't worked, do you have any kind of hangups about food, that kind of thing. Okay. This is just so we can better approach or have a deeper understanding of how you work and how you work with different types of diets and things like that, so that we can really make informed decisions when it comes to coaching you. All right. Then level 3. This is a good one because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the training, this is where we start to understand exactly where you are in terms of your food intake. Okay. So very much like the level 1 audit, for at least 3 days, I want you to completely track everything you're doing with macros. All right. You can do it as much as 7 days. Like, obviously, the longer we track, I think the more information that we get to base our decisions off of. So for example, if you were to track Monday to Wednesday, it's like, okay, a lot of people do really well Monday to Wednesday. So we might not get the full picture on what happens on Friday, what happens on Saturday, what happens on Sunday, which typically are a lot of rough days for people. So if you find that you're really bad on weekends, I would suggest you track for a full week. But if you feel like you're pretty consistent and 3 days would be enough to gather that, that's okay. I feel like the minimum we need to work with is 3 days, but to get a really good idea, 7 would be good as well. So just track everything that you're doing with macros. You do that with MyFitnessPal or whatever other macro tracking application that you have on your phone. This is the really good baseline to understand the quantity that you're intaking that we can base off your current macros. So, for example, when we do move ahead with some macros for you, I don't want to suggest 2,000 calories if you're currently taking in 1,400 or something like that. That might be too much of a gap. So I just want to make sure that we're not making changes that are too big too soon. And we do it in a phased approach that's a little bit smart. Okay. So now we're going to get into the different scenarios. All right. So scenario 1, if you're new to the program, what we're going to do is we're going to do level 1, 2, 3, just like that. Okay. If this is your first week, before we actually jump onto a call and do the whole macro planning thing and set you up, I want to completely understand where you are with your food intake. Okay. What types of food you're eating, how much of it, where your energy intake is at, all that kind of stuff. So really want to understand and get the complete picture by doing things like that. So essentially, if you're only taking 3 days of the macro tracking, you can do all of this within the first week. You do 3 days of the food journaling, you do the 1 day of the questionnaire, and then followed by 3 days of macro tracking. That'll give us a complete-ish picture of what's happening now. So that would be perfect. Okay. So scenario 2, let's say you've been in the program for a little while, you're already tracking. You don't really need to do anything here because we're already doing that. However, if you one way that you can apply it would be going back to level 1. So if you're already tracking macros, you can go back to level 1 and maybe do like a food journal to see like, okay, let's look at the specific foods that I'm eating, because I find it's really hard to analyze foods through macros because foods are more than just numbers on a page, right? They're all about context, where you ate them, when you ate them, with who, were you by yourself, were you out, were you home, that kind of thing. And getting pictures gives us an idea of what's happening there. So it gives us a lot more information than just numbers. So if you feel like, you're already tracking, maybe you're not seeing the results that you want, do a food audit, level 1, to see if we can add some extra context and extra information where there could be some things not, going correctly. Now, scenario 3, let's say you've finished phase 1 of the program, you've done all the macro tracking, you're now in the mindful eating, the intuitive eating type thing. I'm always okay with hopping in for a day or two to do a audit. So whether it's a level 1, or whether it's a level 2, or whether it's a level 3, just checking in with ourselves to maybe track for 3 days to see like, okay, I stopped tracking for a month. I'm not 100% sure if I'm still within the same range that I was. Whether you're hitting 1,800, 200, or 2,000 calories, sometimes it's good just to track for 3 days to say, okay, I've made some changes. I just want to make sure that I'm still kind of in the ballpark here. Confirm, yes, you are, or confirm, no, that you're actually, in fact, not, so you need to make some changes again. It's a really good way just to kind of track-ish sometimes. Now, I don't want to track-ish in terms of like, every other day, but just a little check-in with yourself to make sure that you're still kind of on the right track. All right. So step 1 here would be to just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, track your carbs, proteins, and fats, and your total calories to then understand exactly where you are and just kind of see it in a table here. So once, and again, like if you're kind of like away from tracking and you haven't lately, you can kind of use this nutrition calculator to then figure out where you should be. Okay. So by doing the audits, step 1, we're kind of figuring out where we are. Step 2, you can use this nutrition calculator to then figure out a plan forward. So let's say that, maybe you've completely finished the program and you're kind of content where you are, but maybe you want to start making some changes again. You have the tools here to be able to do that yourself. You can do an audit to see where you're at. Then step 2, use this nutrition calculator to then chart the course forward. All right. So then, once we've done all that, I want you to generate some ideas for improvement. So for both level 1 and level 3, because level 2 is that questionnaire, so it kind of already starts generating ideas for improvement by asking you those questions. But for level 1, once you've done the whole picture thing, and you've kind of did a food journal for a couple days, I want you to start asking yourself these questions. All right. Like number 1, look at the types of foods you ate as a whole. Would you say that they were mostly supporting your goals or no? What percentage didn't support your goals? Are you like 50-50, 70-30, 0? Did you eat no foods that supported your goals, or are you 100%? Just get an idea there. Question 2, how often did you eat out? It's an important question to have. Maybe it's only once, twice a week, maybe more. 3, are most of your meals either meal prepped or home cooked? So again, just some questions to start to understand some things that you might be able to improve that could help you make progress. So You can read through the rest of those questions. They're pretty straightforward. But ask yourself those questions. I would actually consider writing these down, because once you write them down or even type them out, they kind of become more solidified than just answering them in your head. So for the level 3 audit, you can ask yourself these questions. On average, how close are we to meeting our protein, carbs, fats, or overall calories? Like, are you over, under, not close, close? 7, was there a specific day that was easier than the others? Was Monday easier than Wednesday, which was easier than Friday, which was easier than Saturday? There's going to be certain days where maybe they're not as easy as others. And if you look at it on a week by week basis, maybe we find out that Saturday is just your day where you fall down. So maybe we should focus our efforts on being better on Saturday than putting more effort into the week so that we can then be loose on Saturday. 8, was there a specific day that was harder? Again, kind of harping on that, which days are you better or worse? 9, on a scale of 1 to 10, how consistent were you in tracking? Did you track-ish? Did you only track during the week? Did you not track during the weekend? Those are really important questions to have, because ultimately consistency is really important, especially when it comes to tracking and understanding where our downfalls are, because if we don't track, we have no idea. We really need to measure this stuff to be able to manage it. Okay, so in conclusion, we're doing level 1, level 2, level 3 audit if you're joining to the program. If you've already been in the program, feel free to use either of these tools, 1, 2, 3 tools, to get a better understanding of where you are. Maybe you're doing the right thing or you're not doing the right thing. And then if you're finished the program, again, you have access to all these tools, so you can kind of do check-ins with yourself to make sure that you're maintaining, that you're in the ballpark that you thought you were in, and all that kind of stuff. So use these tools as you see fit. If you're joining the program right now, then just go through level 1 audit, then level 2 audit, then level 3 audit within the first week, and then we will continue forward with building your macro program. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to me and I'll get you settled. But hopefully this training was enough to get you started. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next training. Thanks.